Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for day 3 of the Unconventional Convo. I am here with my lovely co-host, Shelly Loftin from the ABA. Welcome, Shelly. And I also have 3 additional amazing bank marketers, ex-board members, new agency owners on the session today. So I'm really excited to have some great conversation with you around the content and themes from the ABA Unconventional Convention, get your insights and have some dialogue. I, of course, know all of you and I'm all big fans, but for those few that may not know who you are, I'd love to have some intros, share a little bit about your story, your involvement with the ABA. If you have any tales that you choose to tell of how you know Shelly and myself, please feel free to do that. I did have to warn John Oxford that it had to be PG, that he wasn't allowed to tell the stories after midnight when we all turn into pumpkins. But Shelly, I'll start with you, please.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be with you again. I'm Shelly Loftin, Senior Vice President of Retail Payments and Lending for the American Bankers Association. That includes the marketing vertical. I have the opportunity to work with all of you, everyone on this panel, for various marketing boards for Bank Marketing School or Bank Marketing Conference and other marketing content. And I am a recovering banker as well.
Felicia, I'll pick on you. You're the newest advisory board member and recent graduate of the ABA Bank Marketing School. If you could give us an intro, tell us a little bit about your story and your involvement with the team.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. Felicia Brown, Chief Marketing Officer for First Farmers. I've only been in marketing for 3 years. I've been in banking at First Farmers for 20 and had an opportunity to do a little bit of everything. So I met Jody and Shelly at the Bank Marketing School, where I felt like I literally was dropped into a different world, but immediately realized I was with the right peeps. I don't know how I've gone through all of my banking career and not been in marketing. I guess in some fashion I always had been, but I've just the networking that I've made through ABA, and I'm on the board now for the ABA board of marketers, but that networking group is just absolutely amazing. Jody, I know originally when the pandemic hit, I reached out to you immediately and was like, what are you doing for this? And everybody's always been so great about helping. And so I'm really glad to be part of this group.
Awesome. We're so happy to have you. You found your way home. You found your way home. We love it. And that's why we wanted to have these conversations, right? Like, the community that we have is all about lifting each other up, seeing each other be successful in their roles at their bank or in their agency. We're all massive cheerleaders for each other. So again, one of our objectives for today is to really just have that conversation and celebrate our community. Kimberley, would you introduce yourself, Del?
Sure. I'm Kimberley Kaschke, and I head up the enterprise marketing strategy and planning for First National Bank of Omaha. And I've had the opportunity to be a part of the ABA since I went to the bank marketing school many years ago now. I've been maybe doing a few more than 3, but you know, I can't echo that enough, right? What Jody and Felicia have said, right? Being able to help each other through this, even through this pandemic, with great content, information, help, sanity sometimes, right? As we're all experiencing it together, and we kind of share that bond and understanding. So my role at the bank is a little bit varied. I have the opportunity to work in an enterprise role, so I get to work, with all areas of the business, and I kind of focus in on technology and innovation and data-driven personalization and that type of work. And so I was geeking out on something fun and new anyway. So that is it about me. So I currently chair of the ABA Bank Marketing School, which everyone should attend. It's wonderful.
Yeah, awesome. We're so happy to have you. Thank you, Kimberley. Mr. Hunter Young, it's been a while. How are you doing, buddy?
Haven't been doing anything, just kind of messing around. It's really good to be here with you guys. And I miss seeing you. I miss seeing you in person for sure. I have had a pretty crazy year, like most of us. And I'm a former banker, was in banking for some time, both large and small institutions, and dabbled in everything from marketing to digital to lending, and wore the hats like bankers often have to do. And then I've transitioned to the agency world. So this year I was fortunate enough to open my own firm. It's a lifelong dream, something I've always wanted to do. Frankly, didn't have the guts to do it for many years. And if there's one year to do it, 2020 is that one. And so we've had a lot of success thanks to a lot of wonderful friends and people I've known over many years. And I am super, super grateful to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you, Hunter. People were questioning me, why would you change a job or start a new job, during a pandemic? And I just kept going to Hunter, I'm not the crazy one. Hunter decided to start a new business.
Yeah, no, I'm the crazy one. I'm the crazy one. I will say this, if you ever need a book on how to open a small business in the midst of pandemic, which I hope we never need that book because I hope we never have this again, I can write that book now and fill it with lots of goodies. It is a challenge, but it has its benefits too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been so fun to watch the Hi-Fi agency even grow, even in the small time that you've been open, and to see the success you've had. So kudos to you. We're super pumped for you and to have you here today. I'm going to transition a little bit on a couple of things. Some of the things that we've talked about in each of the sessions, because it is an annual theme that comes up when we're at conference. I hear all of you in some way, shape, or form refer to conference as being your therapy, that you come to conference and you receive therapy either in the way of just the camaraderie or commiserating, or you're getting the treatment for what's going wrong at your bank and what you need to learn. So I'm interested to hear from all of you, kind of what's your bank marketing therapy right now? What motivated you to attend the conference, and what was kind of gap X, fill in the dots of the things that you were trying to get out of conference this year in 2021? Well, 2020. I don't even know what year it is. Felicia.
You already jumped ahead. You must be setting budgets as well.
I don't even know what day it is at this point, so common theme.
For me, something I really wanted to get out of the conference was that connection again. But also, while we all have gone through the same pandemic, every one of us on the call, every one of us listening today, everyone is going to listen to it later, we all experienced it in a different way. And so I like to know how you experienced it and maybe how you adapted to the situation at hand, because it may not apply even to our bank today or me personally, but later on I find that I pick up those little tidbits and I use them. So for me, it was just really kind of what was going on. And I love the fact that we did combine, and I listened to some of the leadership and the executive sessions as well. Plan to dig into those a little more later, but it's just across the board. I feel like I had more access this year than we had in the past.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up too, because when we were developing the content, as you remember being in DC, a year ago, and thinking about what the marketing conference was going to look like, what are the key themes that we needed to address, and then the shift into what ended up being a virtual conference and having to adapt like all of you have had to in your marketing plans. We could have very easily gone, oh, this isn't fair that we have to share the platform with a CFO or a CEO, that we have to pull away all of this great content that we originally had planned for. But we looked at it as an opportunity to maybe elevate some of the content where we could really position the role of a bank marketer to a CFO or a CEO, or even the caliber of the presenters that we had that were representing the bank marketing pool, like yourself, Kimberley as well. It gave us a lot of, opportunity to really, I think, reach a larger audience and further elevate the role of marketing, in the eyes of those senior leadership roles. What about you, Kimberly? What's your therapy in 2020?
How long is the call?
Do we have enough time?
I think you guys are my therapy, right? So our connections and helping each other, definitely. And then as far as the conference, I love the ability to just absorb all that information, right? Like, and what's wonderful is that I don't have to pick, because of the virtual format. I don't have that FOMO, right? Like, I don't have that fear that I just didn't go to the right one.
Yes.
I love that, and I love being able to pop in and out and see everything and kind of absorb that information when my mind is in the mode to be able to absorb that. So kudos to all, that was well structured, well done. Really liked how it ended up. And, you mentioned the CEOs, CFOs, other ag lenders, et cetera, being able to attend the same conference. I couldn't think that there would be a better scenario. Like, I think that is absolutely key and critical to being able to, really, I don't even know that we're trying to elevate the role. We're trying to explain the role sometimes.
Oh, right.
It's like, it's already elevated. Now let's explain that. We're not looking for, just looking for tchotchke items and putting out flyers anymore. That's not what today's banker needs to do to be successful. If it was, that would be nice, but it's not. It's yours. But, it's all about data and technology and understanding your customer and their journey and how we play a role in that. And, it's shifted so much that it's just absolutely critical that we can have a role in explaining that to our leaders across the country. It'll make everyone better.
Right, absolutely. So Hunter, you've been on the conference tour for the last few years. What was it like this year, kind of getting off the hook a little bit and being more of a participant than a presenter yourself?
Yeah, no, I'm good with not presenting this year because running a little bit low on time for presentations the last couple of months. But I do, I love teaching and I love presenting, but the content or what I really wanted to see this year in particular was how people, leaders, kind of their culture, their brands processed this pandemic. And, it's pretty interesting to see all the perspectives and just all the adaptability is a common word thrown around this year. And I was just really impressed by leadership at a number of banks that I have a tremendous amount of respect for their cultures and their brands too. But just to see how adaptable they were and how comfortable they were with that quote discomfort and continuing it and projecting out and saying, we're okay with whatever new normal is. We're defining that right now. And we actually think we're going to be better off for it. So I was extremely pleased to see that. It shows that the reputation of banks sometimes as being stodgy or immovable, huge ships doesn't necessarily hold up this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris Nichols did a session, and I know Shelly, I know you watched it twice yesterday. Did you watch it another 2 times today?
No, I didn't. I tried to catch some other ones today. I feel like I got a lot out of it, though. It was great.
Yeah, he did a session, if you haven't seen it yet, Hunter, how marketing can drive innovation in 8.5 steps. And what I thought was really good on that session, and it's going to connect back to a session that you taught last year about kind of throwing the traditional way of like campaign management like out the window, right? And it was like you had your crystal ball of agile marketing in front of you. He really talked about experimentation and actually having a budget that is purely assigned to try new things, learn fast, apply new insights, and really experiment, not even in 2021, but like even start doing that now and planning for 2021 and really kind of turn marketing on its head a little bit. So we're not over committing to this traditional campaign management, and that we are being more flexible, are being more agile, are being more efficient in our process too. So I'm interested too, as it relates to a key takeaway, if the three of you have a similar mindset, like if we're going to take one or two nuggets of information back and actually apply it, should it be around experimentation? Should it be implementing new processes? Felicia, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think we're a $1.6 billion bank, so community bank still. And to be in that experimental mode has been a challenge in the past because everything has to be driven by data and results. And I think if we are going to do experiments, this is the year, or starting now, to be able to do that, because if anything, we learned this year that we have to listen to our customers. You have to meet the customer where they are. We have rural areas and then we have urban areas as well. And each one of those customers has been affected differently by the pandemic. Each one of our locations, seven different counties spread across Middle Tennessee. So we had already started doing some experimenting with ways to connect, communication, how to reach out to them in non-traditional ways for first farmers. We're over 111 years old, so that mentality of really reaching outside of a comfort zone, but the year lent itself really well to that. So we'd started that, and I loved the session that Chris, because I have so many takeaways now to say, hey, I was right on this. You know, we've got to try this. And I'd love to see that continuing going forward, not only in marketing, but also throughout our organization, of really listening to the customer and meeting them where they're at, because I think that their behavior will continue to change over the next couple of years due to this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hunter, you kind of touched on it very lightly with the senior leadership, the C-suite being there, and some of the best banks who are adapting to this new paced environment too, and are actually kind of embracing it as an opportunity too. What are your thoughts around it being a short-term experiment, or a way that we need to just continually ingrain into our culture as a way of thinking?
Yeah, I definitely have the fear of short term always. I think it is easy for a CEO to go up there and say kind of the bullet points, but really the nuts and bolts of the organization, the marketing people, the retail people, the operational people, you have to risk something to change, to innovate. And so you either have to risk something professionally, or your bank has to take on some kind of risk. And I know I throw that term out, not speaking in the sense of true bank risk and financial risk, but more so being willing to alter something, a budget, a piece of tech, something you do, you have to be willing to take that step. And so hopefully this year has accelerated that. Chris Nichols is a wonderful, wonderful person. I'm a huge fan of him. I'm pretty sure he's actually one of a set of triplets of Chris Nichols, because it's actually three Chris Nichols doing all the things that he does, because he's truly amazing individual. And I saw part of his session. It was really well done.
Yeah. Oh, he'll love it. Yesterday, he was getting the title of Yoda, so he was feeling pretty high last night. And then Shelly was our Luke Skywalker, so she was coming up with some pretty good comments yesterday as well. But I think there's so much to that with people coming to conference and are looking for answers right now, like how should I spend my marketing budget? And I thought what was really interesting around some of the themes was, and whether it's because of the format or because of the C-suite being there as well, there wasn't a lot of the on-demand sessions or the keynotes around marketing tactics, if you will. There were more of these themes around innovation, data, human capital. Shelly, you've got some of your themes on her whiteboard. She's had a whiteboard every day and kind of pulled out these little nuggets of themes. What are your themes today, Shelly?
So my themes today were intensification and customer experience and the get moving and a change of mindset. And I know the reason these were my themes is a lot of people have thrown out that there's been a lot of acceleration of technology, but it was in one of the sessions too. I think it might have been, I think it's Life in 2030, the one with Mario Gillen from Wharton, where he talked about that it's really been, we've just seen an intensification in certain consumer behaviors. And I thought that that was really relevant because we were already working on a lot of these things. We just had to accelerate and intensify kind of our efforts. And we need to do that in various pieces within the bank. And then the customer experience and get moving go together. So there's a fantastic session in the innovation and payment space called Digitization of Banking, FinTech and Big Tech, and what it means kind of for the future of banking. And Angie Garrett from Arvest Bank, along with a representative from McKinsey and Rob Morgan from ABA, talk about moving forward and what innovation looks like moving forward and how it relates to the customer experience. And it all ties back into marketing and CX and just get started. I mean, just determine what's best for your organization, what kind of fintech partnerships you need, what kind of pain points you have in your processes, what kind of data you need for your project, and just start. Like, it's the big, you know, we talk about all these big theories and these big ideas and how we're going to put them in place. But for them to be successful, we actually have to start. And I loved that session. And at the end of it, that was her advice for moving forward, is if she could tell anybody something, what would she tell them? And it was, you know, get started. And I thought, so simple, but also so impactful, because we do get bogged down in kind of data paralysis, and we want to collect all of these facts before we move. And we're talking about being agile and learning to kind of fail and start over and go again. We're talking about getting more comfortable doing that, but we've got to get comfortable starting while we're still not sure. Right. And I think that was kind of a key thing that hit home to me, is all the data doesn't have to be fully aligned and perfect at the beginning either. If you think you see a trend and you think you see support for it, go ahead and get started and then iterate along the way.
Yeah. We can sit in boardrooms and talk about what we should be doing and what we could be doing. But at some point, we have to kind of get kick-started, right? We need a bit of a kick up the bum. And I think that's the role that marketers can certainly play too, is we tend to go at a much faster pace than a lot of the other, you know, different areas within the bank too. And so instead of being passive, and that's was another kind of message in some of the themes too, was like, we can't be passive anymore. We really need to be proactive in the efforts that we want to put forward. And again, create a culture where we can experiment and try new things without having everything completely tightened up from day one. But we're not going to move the needle unless we start giving things a crack and start actually going down that path, right? That's awesome. Any other comments on that, Hunter, Kimberly?
Well, I do think that this was the perfect year for that, right? Yeah. So 2020, wow. It's a perfect year to say, you know what? We don't have time to make it perfect. We don't have time to get all the data perfected. We don't have time to get this, you know, beautiful plan together. We need to take action right this moment to help our customer. And, you know, everybody rallied together to make that happen, right? And that was awesome. We were able to innovate quite a bit and kind of shocked ourselves at times that we were able to get some things going that we've talked about for years. And it kind of goes back, Shelly, also to what you're kind of talking about. It don't overcomplicate it, right? And sometimes we blow it up in our head like, oh my God, we'll never be able to build that or do that or whatever. And you know what? We spun one of those up in a few days. So
right. showed we could do it. It showed we could do
and
it.
It can be awesome. It can really make a difference for customers, and that's what it's all about. So anyway, 2020 is perfect year. I like your board, Shelly. I think that's cool.
It's been so good to see it just like continue to grow and grow and grow, all of these different themes. But you're right though, Kimberly, too. Like we had things that were on the project backlog for years.
Oh, yeah.
Years.
Huge things. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, S hits the fan, and all of a sudden, it's all getting like pushed through, and we're implementing things like within a week.
Yeah.
Right. And the bank didn't blow up.
Right.
the bank didn't blow up. Regulators weren't closing down, the offices. Like we did it, and we did it successfully. And I found too that there was, again, kind of culturally too, like there was a willingness, like people were like, yes, like instead of the friction of no, why, explain, fill out the business case. Like,
we're so careful.
So I thought that was really interesting. And that's what Hunter said, his skepticism, or he's scared of it being short term, right? Like how do we continue to evolve from that versus revert back to, old habits? And that's going to be the challenge, right?
Yeah.
So good transition to your session, Kimberly, with the wonderful Karen Party. And I don't know if anyone saw in the conversation board in the forums, I wanted to start like a viral thing, but I'm just like, whenever I see that woman, I'm just like, when I grow up, I want to be Karen Party. Like she is
incredible.
Oh, isn't she incredible? Yeah. She's so thoughtful, so well-spoken, so intelligent, and is doing really, really great things at her bank and in her role. But you guys had a wonderful session about talking about the role of marketing. And as we try to give some answers to bank marketers with what to do next, right? I think understanding the role of marketing and where to invest in. Shelly, your quote from yesterday, upskill and reskill, I think played a really good, tie into that too. And how do we invest in our people in the coming months to make sure that they have the skill sets within this expansive role of marketing? Felicia, being the newer person to marketing in the group, we've talked about data analysts, digital storytellers, social media managers, strategists, customer experience managers, and consumer behaviorists. Like that's a mouthful. Where are you going to invest in, or where do you see like your personal priorities going into next year, and even building out your teams? Like, can you add some color on where you're going to be investing into some of those skill sets?
Yeah, I think first we're going to get a group therapist. No, I'm kidding.
We're here. Once a month, 1 hour.
Continuing to invest really in the training. And when I say training, it is the training of upscaling their skills, yes, and their talents, but it's also that networking and the connections, because as bank marketers, this is the thing that I'm finding I'm not a solo on. Most bank marketers, there's a very small team that's covering large footprints. So for us, it's just really going to be continuing investing inside of the training and the skills and the networking. We did get another person in marketing this year, and that was very helpful. Yeah, I know, right?
I feel like that was a long business case.
Yeah, I just probably was like, we got to. It was the shortest business case I ever wrote. We got to. Awesome. Making sure that she has those connections as well. Not losing sight of what we learned through how to get things done. And I'll echo, I think what Kimberly was saying just a while ago, but the willingness across the board of all of our departments and areas and we still follow process, because let's face it, guys, in a couple of years, we're going to be audited for 2020. Don't forget. So we followed all the processes, but it was an easier transition because everyone had the same goal, servicing that customer. At the end of the day, whether it was closing a lobby and having someone come through the drive-through to do something we normally didn't allow, or upstanding the PPP loan process. That is not something that we had an SBA department. We didn't have that. And so for me, it's just really continuing to strive education. I think I reached out to Shelly just recently on the new piece that ABA has to offer on the data and analytics. And I think that that's going to be key. So,
yeah. And it just shows the relevancy, right? Like that people are investing in these skill sets either at the bank level or at a trade level, that they've recognized that these are required skill sets of a successful marketing department, right? Hannah, from your lens too, ex-bank marketer, now agency, like what are your clients coming to you for? What problems are you trying to solve for them? And because I know a lot of the times, and even in my new role at Social Assurance, we're trying to fill a void for them too with some of these skill sets as well. What are you seeing at Hi-Fi?
Yeah, it's interesting mix right now. There is certainly a lot of folks that are looking at their, call them journeys, automations, onboarding. They're evaluating their content. People are taking a harder look at content, which I think is worthwhile. We all attended conferences 5 years plus ago and said, "Oh, we got to do the content marketing thing," and maybe we started a blog or we did those kind of things. And I think finally people are starting to be a little more regimented in thinking through strategically how this content works, how many legs it has, how it can be repurposed and reused. So seeing more of that. And then definitely brand. I think a byproduct of a year like this, people look hard at brand or sub brands underneath their main financial brand. So seeing a lot more conversation around how do we not rest on our laurels? How do we not become just another commodity brand? And we're spinning off a digital bank. What is that going to look like? There's a lot of those conversations around brand in particular circulating as it pertains to tech and product launches, as well as bank growth in general. So everything. They're talking about everything, Jody.
Right. I know the list just keeps getting longer, and that's the reality, right? And that's what hopefully a lot of the content has been able to provide, is some sense of direction of what to do next. And it really is about investing in human capital and giving them the skill sets to do this. One of the things that kind of keeps coming up too is like budget, pandemic, pending recession, really shrinking margins, potential concerns with credit quality and how that's going to affect, the bottom line at banks. Some of the things that came out of a session was around spending in a recession too. Where do you guys see from a budgeting perspective where people should be spending their budget? How are they going to get the most bang for their buck with their budgets, especially if they are told, we need to cut, 10% off? Like, where, in your opinions, are you going to be investing budgets, or would encourage others to be spending your budget in 2021? Kimberly?
Yeah, great question. I was talking to Hunter about this not so long ago. So, it's really just taking a fresh look and giving yourself permission to take a fresh look, I think, right? Because we get in such a routine that, in our brain, we think, oh, we have to spend this much on, print media. We have to spend this much.
Right. And it's just a pie chart, and you just allocate a percent every year, and it's just what you do, right? Yeah.
Some things do change, right? So are we all investing in phone books in the same degree? No, I hope not. And so if that's, that's just one example, but, we realized, for example, we were way underspending on search, and whether it be CMECO, that whole investment, right? And so we're shifting there. Also around our technology, that our technology, might be a little bit stale. And so we're, looking at how can we lay foundation and make spend now that will just have great returns down the road. And so, and then when you do that, then you have to take a look at everything else you're doing. It's like, well, it doesn't mean we're going to do this and then everything else the same way we did before. Maybe for a while there's a transition there, right? And so we have to meet the customers where they are. We have to understand their needs. We have to listen through data. We don't have the opportunity to have them coming in and out of the bank every single day like we did, well, for goodness sake, a generation ago, let alone a year ago, right? Like, so we have to be able to invest in data, to be able to, and technology to pick up on those, and be able to understand our customer like we used to be able to do because we just got to know them. They're coming in, So data, technology, those are some important things. But whatever you're investing in, right, it needs to align to your strategy, right? So it can't be, Kimberly's strategy. It has to be something that will make a difference for each organization, and that certainly should look different, right? But I think just rethinking things, fresh perspective, and be willing to take a chance. And what were some of Shelly's words? Just
Shelly's your word.
Yeah.
Taking that. Yeah, and I think too, going back to Hunter's groundbreaking presentation a year ago, just advanced, just ahead of the time. He knew it was coming. But, traditionally, we've had a budget. We have a GL for print, for radio. We allocate a percent. We do an annual media buy. We think that that's the right way to go about it, right? But there is this conversation, I think, that needs to take place in the boardroom and with your CEO that is, asking for permission to try new things, be more flexible with the budget, be able to learn and adapt and use those insights so you can go, you know what, this isn't working right now. When we saw how dramatic upticks were for online account opening, I would say if you don't have online account opening, you need that now, right? But we saw dramatic increases with online account opening happen organically. So there's a lot then of opportunity from an acquisition perspective too, and allocating kind of spend there. That's where people are going, and that's how people are interacting. Hunter, I know that you've got a lot of great insights and experience to that. What are your thoughts around, especially those banks that aren't that don't even have that tool right now? What's your argument to get that up at the top of the priority list?
Yeah, it's a tough sell. I know it is. And I also know it's a tough sell like Felicia had with sometimes getting an FTE on staff. And so to her point, being succinct sometimes matters. And so I think one of the natural byproducts of budgeting is, I don't really have a lot of intelligence on what did and did not work last year. So it's plug and play again. And even if I have some stats or some data, or I saw some good click-throughs or good impressions or whatnot, those allocations they feel like what they should be, or we go up a little bit or a little bit down in certain categories based on how we're feeling. They aren't typically strategically aligned. And it's sad to say, but another reason for that is that a lot of banks don't do a good enough job of really digging in, timing their strategy to affect the budgets that they create. And so strategy is catching up to budget, and budget's already done and approved, and agencies are doing things and people are working. And it's like, oh, shut it down, agency, shut it down. We have now figured out our strategy in July of the year. And so this year of all years has proven to us that maybe it's okay to think about a little bit differently about budgeting, and maybe it's okay to leave more room for experimentation, like we talked about earlier. There's other ways to think about allocation that go beyond just traditional mindset. The thing Kimberly was talking about, not all marketers have to think about tech budgets. They're frankly not allowed to. And marketers, if you're not allowed to think about tech budgets, you need to ask somebody or talk to somebody. It's not fair in 2020. You really do need to stand up and be like, listen, I'm a marketing and a technology person now. So you need to give me that stack of the budget as well. Really sell that hard because I think that's a critical part of budgeting going forward too.
And I think that plays into the CX role, and the CX that we're seeing take center stage this year, because you should have the marketing part of the budget, the technology part of the budget that controls that customer experience. And I know in in one of the CX sessions, I mean, they even said they don't have all the perfect metrics outlined to say, we know this is going to be successful because of X. But what they do know is they are going to focus on listening, and they're going to listen to their employees, and they're going to listen to their customers, and they're going to let what they hear define that success. And they're putting their budget dollars there. And if you think about that from a global perspective, I mean, that's a big deal. You're basically saying, I'm going to allocate a certain percentage of dollars to listen to the people who work for me and do business with me, and then determine the path, versus, as Hunter said, what we're used to doing, which is, oh yeah, you know, we got to go get all this done because so-and-so said last year we needed to grow deposits in this area. So we've got this awesome CD rate. So I'm going to, you know, throw my rate on the newspaper ad and make sure my yellow pages are up to date. I mean, this is a totally different mindset of, we're not talking about what advertising to push out. We're talking about what change to affect internally that ultimately affects the bottom line.
Yeah. And it goes back to as well, like Kimberly, even back to your session, right? With the role of marketing from promo to president, again, we're not just advertising, right? We're not, no more cookies and punch, says Natalie. But, you know, are you building into your budget and strategy, you know, around data and analytics? Do you have, you know, a strategy around utilizing more data in 2021? Do you even know where your data is, what data you have access to? If you don't, to your point, Hunter, like, knock down the door and figure out what information you have access to. Digital storytellers is another one that Karen said, like content strategy. Are you investing in content? Are you doing more than just the blog, right? And one of the things we've talked a lot about at Social Assurance with our clients too is kind of changing this mindset about starting the conversation with the channel. You know, oh, we're going to go on LinkedIn, or we're going to go on Twitter, or we're going to go, you know, they're talking about channels, and trying to get them to take a step back, going, those channels are useless unless you have a really good content strategy. What investments are you going to make in content creation? Do you have someone on your team? Do you need to outsource that? You know, do you have a budget for video? You know, if you don't have a budget for video, you know, you're missing out there, because we need to be able to tell stories digitally through, you know, that medium too. So I think that that's another area too, is we kickstart these conversations and shifting it from just a media buy. Are you investing in these other areas, not only from a development perspective, but a strategic objective too? I'm going to jump down so I've got my notes all over here and all my quotes and everything, so forgive me for going toggling back and forth. But I sat on a session today, and it was fun to watch the different perspectives on the great branch debate. And this is something that I think has been kind of a consistent theme, if you will, in some capacity the last few years. Branch transformation, what does the branch of the future look like? And then this year was more about the branch debate. And I think part of the conversation was around, you know, operating without physical branches during COVID, and are banks reopening those branches? If they are, to what degree? How has it changed consumer behavior? But I think kind of going back to the data conversation for everyone on the call today too, like what insights were actually garnered from the last kind of 6 to 8 months too, and what learnings are there to help make those decisions. Kimberly, you've got the largest kind of footprint. You're about 20 billion plus.
Over.
Yeah. So talk me through how you've approached that and how you've learned from that, and kind of the conversations that are taking place. And then Felicia, I'd love to hear from you as well, being a smaller community bank too, where we talk about how do you be a community bank if you don't have a branch in the community. There's that kind of debate, which was one of the themes too. I'd love to get your perspective. So Kimberly, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
Yeah. So are you asking about the data piece or the branches, or both?
Both. Please tell me everything.
Okay. Right. So, we are taking a look at what our ideal branch strategy looks like. And definitely that whole vision has been shaken a little bit this year.
Yes.
What is that? What should that be? We're 163 years old. So we have some significant investment in some brick and mortar, man. So,
Right.
we're not gonna change anything overnight, but we have to really be, again, listening to our customer and understanding what is that they want in each community or area. What are their drive time patterns? How do they engage with us the most? Are they shifting to, more digital? Not everybody is, right? But many are, at least in some regard. And so, just making sure that we're, I think a topic of conversation is always, how do we build our online offerings to be equal to, it's aspirational, equal to our in-branch, offerings. And so that a customer can, even start in one channel and migrate to another based on their own need, have us help them along that journey in any way, shape, or form, and have it feel consistent, right? So, they grew up separately. And so we need to bring those together so that they both feel like us. Does that sound stupid? But, just to, take a fresh look at what that looks like. And I think the branch of the future is different. I do. I believe, we'll see fewer really large structures with lots of, back-end processing in each one of them, and more hub and spoke, kind of situations where you have a place in your drive time to be able to, get some of the work done that you might need with business partners, but then also a quick and easy solve too. So we need to make sure that they understand when they need someone in person, we've got you, and when you don't need something in person, here's how you can get that done. And data supports all of it to transition in that direction, right? Data, our investment in data is pretty extreme. At this time, and that's not just money. That's really in focus, right? I work passionately on developing the customer 360 and understanding what it is that the customer is looking for, and how can we communicate that out to the whole bank so that is playing on the same team, going in the same direction, has the same information and awareness, so we can best serve that customer. So a lot of work around data quality. Tons of work around data quality, a lot of projects in the works, even tagging our data, and, especially with all of our privacy considerations that play into this from a regulatory standpoint and from just a conscience standpoint, right? How should we use that data is going to be different than
ethically use it, right? Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a good point too, around how do you not only utilize the data from a marketing perspective, right, but how do you bring those insights into the frontline staff or into all of your decision making, so it's not just this siloed, like, oh, I've got all of this data and I'm doing really cool marketing things with it. It's like, how are you actually sharing that information, and what may be tools that you need to be able to disperse that, or even if it's just as simple as internal comms and, information sharing as well. Felicia, what about you? What do you see around, branch reopenings? Are all of your branches reopened now?
Yes, all of our lobbies are reopened. They were effective in June. So we've been reopened for quite some time. But so a lot of similarities that Kimberly was mentioning about how do we make it all look like us, but yet realization that while we're only 22 locations across 7 counties, those 7 counties all interact with us differently. And I feel like in the past, all of our branches do look differently. As you can imagine, 111 years, and you have different structures and different levels of when you've invested in them.
And different CEOs' wives that like different styles to add the wallpaper or a committee, right? Like, that's how a lot of branch renovations historically have been handled, right? And it's the disconnects, the disjointed experience, right?
It is. And while we did invest in technology, and luckily we had invested in the technology, and it was there. It didn't have as large of an adoption as it did prior to March, where we started out and had to push people out to that, but we had to take a step back and invest time in doing how-to videos, just simple things that, me personally, I didn't think of because I've always used the technology. But getting that on board has been great because it all does look like us now. It's all branded under this marketer, and that's kind of good because that's the other thing, not only the CEO style, but also the marketer style at that time. But as Hunter mentioned too, making that step back and truly, and I see it on Shelly's board, listening. We say that we did, but I don't know if we did before now. But truly listening, because while our locations are spread out, we easily could have someone that lived in one area but banked with us in another area. And in the past, we tended to all group those areas into that's how they interacted with us. And that's not exactly true at all. So just kind of taking a step back, looking at it. You guys mentioned budget earlier, and I put mine together a few weeks ago and sent it up, and I got a real quick email right back and says, this doesn't look like your other ones, because it's only my third year of submitting budget. And I said, nope, and why would it?
Right.
Because
it shouldn't look like it. It shouldn't look like it. That's
the
a good thing.
DLs that we had out there before, we thought we didn't need to communicate in particular ways. And so we'd stop doing that. But I think that goes along with that branching strategy too, is we truly are listening.
Yeah, good on you. Good on you. Anna, do you have anything to add to that around what you see the branch experience look like around that branch debate? Less branches, different experience, all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, this has been an ongoing conversation for some time, I know. And I haven't personally been inside of a branch in 3 years. I know many people have not. I think it's geographic. I think it's dependent on location many times to influence your kind of hub and spoke style. In a lot of metropolitan areas, I think banks will still build statement branches. Places like where I live, Raleigh, Charlotte, Austin, Nashville, these are high growth places where the Chases of the worlds are coming in and dropping big, giant statement branches to say, come bank with Chase, but the bigger thing for me is, what are your people inside the branches doing to proactively reach out now? So I'm thinking more about the people inside these branches and how are you call it empowerment, call it kind of technology enablement, whatever you want to say. What are you giving them to get beyond the walls of the branch? And that's something that's been talked about for a long time now too, but I still haven't seen that take place. I got a call from a big bank branch manager for a relationship that I've had for 23 years. This was like the dad signed me up for a checking account. And it literally, the first call from this bank in 23 years happened during the pandemic. And the only reason that happened was because a pandemic literally influenced this branch to say, well, nobody's coming in. Let's reach out to this customer list. And so I was a bit of a passive aggressive ass to this young woman who didn't deserve it. No, she didn't deserve this. But I was like, hey, it's been 22 years. How old were you then? And so, yeah, but that it speaks to the idea that we're still, the largest banks in this country are doing the same tired outreach approaches, and not really connecting with the community that's kind of around that branch.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a great session. Mark Schaefer, that's right, the Most Human Banks Win. It was a really good session if you haven't seen it, but he did provide like a set of questions, right? And it's like to understand like what are we giving our team? Like if our team traditionally were order takers, people would come in, they would, sign them up for e-statements, or they take a loan application, or maybe they drove a lot of their engagement through community events and hosting fundraising things. If these things aren't happening now, how are we equipping them to still reach and connect, right? And kind of asking a series of those questions when you building out your marketing strategy and your strategic plan, going through that process and trying to then figure out the answers. If they're not coming in, how are we getting to them, right? And it may be through technology or some other creative method. We're almost at the top of the hour. I have to lean on Shelly. There was a really great session from Dr. Laurie Santos on the psychology and the good life. And we had so many awesome takeaways from that. Happiness is on Shelly's whiteboard as well. And I know you're all into consumer behavior and even just ourselves personally, right? Like, how do we continue to be happy, creative, fulfilled people? How do we continue to inspire and motivate each other? And I thought that there was some amazing takeaways there. Shelly, I'll let you have a little bit of the spotlight right now and talk about this because you do such a good job.
Oh, no, I just think that with what everybody's been going through, in whatever way, shape, or form with this pandemic, that it's really important that we treat people as people within our organizations and that we do focus on their happiness. And I know she had several phrases that I love, but we kind of focus on making their time nutritious. I mean, how can we help them learn and grow? How can we learn and grow? How can we protect the time that we have for self-care? I mean, one of the things she said really, had an impact on me, that self-care is not selfish. And, I'm a good Southern girl. I take care of other people well before. I have never thought until recently a whole lot about self-care. And I think there's a lot of women, especially who are prone to perfectionism and wanting to overachieve, and we forget the self-care aspect of that. And she goes on to talk about how being grateful and sharing that gratitude can help you as far as your own happiness level. And I heard a quote several years ago, and I remember thinking that, my Bear State colleagues probably wish I had never heard it because I went over the top with it. But it was, gratitude is like, if you don't give away gratitude, it's like giving somebody a present but not letting them unwrap it. You always have to give it out. So it helps you. It kind of fills up your bucket. That's a concept they teach at my kids' school that we have to reiterate day after day, because I've got two boys. They need to be filling each other's bucket up, but what they really like to do is hit each other on the head with their But I think adults are like that too, which is why the science of happiness is so important, and is why if you can listen to Dr. Santos's session and apply it to your life and your organization, you absolutely should.
Yeah, and I think the group that's on the session today too is so driven by data too. She talks about this is an evidence-based approach. This isn't just a self-help. This is what you should be doing because it's what the hippies say that we mentioned do, and the mantras and all of that. It's using data sets, and as leaders too, as we think about how do we work smarter and get more out of our teams too. She talked about gratitude on the job, and a couple of stats. Giving daily gratitude on the job increased performance by 50%. Like, that's huge productivity. Another one, sending a gratitude letter that is detailed and genuine will boost your well-being for over a month. So there's these great data sets in there too that really show the evidence behind some of these tactics too. And I think as we talk about next steps, whatever that is about budget, strategy, planning, these are some of those things when we talk about ourselves as leaders, as we talk about investing in our people. These are some really great takeaways too for us. We've got 58 seconds left. I'm going to go around quickly. Just last thoughts to leave the online audience with today and just wish them well. Anything, Kimberley, you want to leave out there today in the universe?
I think that was the absolute perfect way to kind of leave this one is, no matter how hard we're working at the bank, and is to really don't forget to take care of ourselves, fill our own cup and those around us.
Yeah, Awesome. Felicia.
No, I agree. That is the perfect way to end. Happiness. Hunter, I thought about you because you said 23 years somebody finally reached out to you, but we've really been reaching out not only to our customers, but also our team members. Remote work in an area where we had not had it before is difficult and challenging. It's great because we're able to work from home when we need to, but it's also hard for us that have always been connecting. So just a reminder, connect to those people around you. It doesn't have to be physical. It can easily just be a video conference call or a phone call or a quick text.
Hunter, I expect big things. What are you going to leave us with, bud?
Listen, it's 5:30. You're going to get what you're going to get. I will say this. Homes are anxious right now. Business owners are anxious. There's anxiety is at just an extreme level across our world. And so gratitude, saying thank you, those things are important. We're terrible practitioners of that. We read books, all these modern books, and they all say the same thing. We don't put it into practice. So the way you put that into practice is to get your mind right. Start it first thing in the morning. I run. You don't have to run, but do something to get your mind right, because that's going to enable you to be grateful and show gratitude as well. And I'm grateful for this time today.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you guys too. I so appreciate your time. I appreciate sharing your minds with me. Thank you so much. I'm thankful for you. Have an amazing day, and I appreciate you. Bye.
Bye.